Well, I have to admit, that was more amazing than I thought it would be. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 20, Lost and Found. This is the episode where we finally talk to Demenitus. Huh. So, they're getting pretty close. Eugene's starting to freak out, which makes perfect sense. So they decide to celebrate his birthday, which actually also makes perfect sense. One of those weird little things about being an orphan is you tend to not actually know what your birthday is. Like, you can guesstimate, but that's about it. It's actually kind of funny, because a lot of people's anniversaries work the exact same way. Like, you don't know the exact day you met someone in most cases, right? And you certainly don't know the exact day you decided to start actually being a couple. So you tend to just pick a day, right? No, that's just me. Actually, I know a lot of people who do that. You just decide, here, boom, this is our anniversary. Usually there's more thought put into it than that. It's just something that's interesting. So, okay, they're going to go on their date, and everything's cool, and then they bring back Madame Canardist, whose name, by the way, in case I haven't said this before, is Con Artist. Con Artist. And she's an asshole the entire episode. Yeah, please let this be the last time. Please stop bringing in the extremely racist character. It's not cool. It's not interesting. She's never been good. It would actually have been more interesting if just the monkey showed up by himself and was like, oh my god, it's the monkey, behold. And this is when we found out that the monkey is Demenitus. You know what? I'm willing to go with that. What's actually doubly interesting here is he makes something very clear. I feel silly thinking about the world building of this setting. I'm sorry. I know that's an unkindness, but like so many times they've proven they are not thinking about their world building. But I have to point out that he makes it very clear that he was a scientist and an engineer, not a mage. He specifically calls himself not a sorcerer. So he uses a spell as part of this, but only in the same way that anybody could use a spell, by doing the incantation and understanding how it works. He has no built-in magic, right? So it makes a degree of sense that almost everything that he does is close to magical, but is like someone interacting with magic distantly, kind of more what we refer to as a wizard, rather than someone who has built-in magic like a sorcerer. I'm not going to reference MLP, I swear to God, even though it'd be a totally valid time to do so. But it does show, if you're paying attention to a lot of the traps in this maze, too. Almost all of them are more on the lines of something more mechanical, something more constructed, something more engineering, rather than, magic traps and puzzles. So, okay. I also want to give special praise to Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton actually does a rather good job with this role. I happen to like Timothy Dalton as an actor, even though I don't hear him in a lot of things. Probably his most memorable role for me is actually in Doctor Who, of all things. But he does a good job here. He manages to carry the gravity that this thing needs. So, really quick, I just want to comment on this. They did this very brief, super zoomed out shot, as it, like in another one of those wonderful, excellent animated stylized sequences where it's like, yes, me and my disciples, his 3 disciples, we'll come to that in just a second, decided to go and find the moonstone. And as the camera zooms out, we see like a bit of a curvature of the earth. And there's this, and there's this. And we see the sunstone marks over here, say about where France is, and the moonstone lands over here, closer to the other side of the Mediterranean, closer to, say, something like Egypt, or maybe in the Israel area, something like that. The significance of this statement? Well, that would explain the sea in between the two. In fact, if you're paying attention to the shot, there is actually a sea inlet in between the direct path between the two. Holy crap. And then we also see his 3 disciples. I said I'd comment on this, and yes, I noticed. One of the disciples was Mother Gothel. That makes a lot of sense, actually. It would explain how she knew how to find this thing however long ago. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the movie never actually goes into how old she is, just that she is pretty freaking old. That she knew where the sunstone was and knew how to actually activate the damn thing. And did so. And that's how she lived for a long time until the king decided to get involved, and, well, then things started to go south. So, okay, that tracks 100%. They also have eyeball spiders? Yes, Eugene's skeptical. Yeah, I get it. So they have eyeball spiders, which are ivory spiders. Get it? Ivory spiders? Anyways, so this is when I mentioned the magical thing, the engineering thing. Eugene decides not to pay his coin to the statue, which, yeah, that is a very rookie mistake. Clearly, Eugene has no experience whatsoever at dungeon delving and hasn't been spending the last 2 years adventuring. Anyways, I did want to comment on one other thing. So I mentioned the animation bit with Gothel earlier. I don't feel like the writers really did a lot of thinking about their world, the setting. But I think the animators did. Because you'll notice a lot of these interesting details have been on the animation department, not the actual dialogue that people are speaking out loud. Significance for this exact scene? Well, there's all these interesting green crystals going out to the thing where it is, and those green crystals look very similar to the amber crystals that Varian had built. Remember? Accidentally, but nevertheless, he figured out how to replicate that based off of using the black spikes. And I bring that up because I think that's a deliberate visual parallel, a contrast between the two. Not that I keep pointing out the significant, obvious, really, really obvious parallels between Demanitus and Varian, but it would make sense if both of them essentially came to the same conclusion and built the same kind of things. It's just Demanitus's are all green because that's his color. All his stuff is green. You gotta have branding. It's very important. So we have to take a leap of faith, and I was in the middle of typing, what is this, Indiana Jones? Except then he gets to the box, pickpockets it, and lo and behold, it is Indiana Jones, because the whole place starts collapsing as soon as he takes it. I've heard of a load-bearing boss, but a load-bearing box? That's fine. So, they get out, and the Guardian shows up, and do you notice the Guardian also swivels his head as he's talking? I only bring that up because that would be the perfect thing for a toy. There are toys that have exactly that mechanic to show different expressions on the action figure. I would bet you money right now that no toy of this Guardian exists. Anyways, so yeah, they fight and they run away and the Guardian does his whole thing, and there's an interesting statement that Eugene makes where he says, "Who makes a death machine without an off switch?" And that is a very interesting statement because actually both sides of that argument have validity to them. Either you want to make absolutely sure there's a way to turn off your death machine, or you want to make absolutely sure there's no way to turn off your death machine, depending on how you want to deal with that. And both of those actually do have some validity to them, depending on what you're going with. Having said that, not just from fiction, but from real life, generally speaking, no, you always want to make sure you have a key. In fact, that's how a lot of real-life internet security operates, is there is always a key. Somewhere, somehow, you know, the right people with the right things can break into literally anything. And yeah, I wasn't even going to bring up Ted Faro. That's just, yeah. So no, yeah, there probably should have been a failsafe here. Ted, the monkey. Anyways, so then they go and they have a big good character moment. You have to unite the Moondrop and the Sunstone. Once you do, you will gain tremendous power. If you don't, the black spikes will seek you out forever. So that actually implies quite a bit. But the thing that sits for me the most, the thing that caught my attention the most, the Moonstone wants to be united with the Sunstone. This feels like a vacuum situation, right? The artifact wants to be whole. The One Ring parallels, we're walking. And so obviously it absolutely is seeking out this sort of a thing, which goes back to that whole destiny thing. This literal cosmic power ended up on the Earth, split by cosmic coincidence, and now they're trying to reunite the damn thing. Or rather, it's trying to reunite the damn thing. So she's going to reach it, she's going to unite it, it's going to be cool, except before we get back to that, can I just say, I feel really bad for Demanitus here, because the words fate worse than death get bandied about a little bit, but I think this qualifies as actually a fate worse than death. Having your mind slowly subsumed into that of a monkey. That's horrific. Does he keep living forever? Remember, this isn't even a real monkey. He flat out says in this episode that he built this thing. So it's entirely possible he's just going to be a monkey, like, forever. I was actually going to bring that up too, Old 40. So if the Moonstone seeks the Sunstone, why hasn't it been? Like, this was a while ago, and nothing has happened for a huge gap in time. We actually have a specific date, 24 years. 24 years ago is when they decided to lock off the Dark Kingdom. You know, and I don't know what else happened. We haven't figured out yet. But they specifically said that when they did that one flashback earlier. So, like, we know that Demanitus and his whole thing was a long time ago. We know Mother Gothel is in the centuries range old. In fact, it's one of the reasons her outfit is so far out of date. It's because she's so far out of date. So, again, what has been happening in the in-between? And this is a really, really common problem with a lot of fiction. They want things to happen now because now is when the story's happening. But they want things to happen from before because we want to make sure that there's like this you know, this weight of destiny and time and effort and epochs and eras and all that kind of stuff. Now, usually fiction will come up with some kind of impetus, something that sparks things. Now, I'm not saying this show hasn't done that. It's just this show hasn't done that yet. And even some really good fiction, looking at you, Warcraft, tends to have about a 9,000 gap of time where nothing happens. So, now that is true. There were no spikes growing when the flower was growing. But that once again brings back the question, why? You can't say it's because the flower wasn't being activated. Let me walk that sentence back a bit. You could argue that as long as the Moonstone and the Sunstone stay dormant, that neither are seeking out the other. But we know the Sunstone hasn't been dormant because it's been activated periodically for centuries. Every time Mother Gothel went back, reactivated it, brought her healing, you know, put herself back to youth, and then left again, that's activating the power of the Sunstone. So what the hell has been happening that it hasn't been causing, right? You can see why there's some question marks here. There's some, huh? It also is doubly interesting that the specific thing that reactivated the Sun Drop, aka Rapunzel, was her interacting with the black spikes. There's some questions here, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not, maybe they'll answer these questions and maybe they won't. But it is, there's, like I said, there's a lot implied in this one little scene, which is why I wanted to discuss that briefly. Either way, so yeah, fate worse than death. She goes ahead and makes the hair shield show up, which is cool. Absolutely cool. I do love that. Third time she's used it total. And everything's cool. They go away. Madame Con Artist leaves the narrative, hopefully for the last time. And then the episode does something. So he sees the last message and it says, "One amongst your party shall betray you." And it's like, oh my god. And he looks at everyone. He looks at everyone. Looks at everyone. And then he looks at, I'm guessing Xantiri. That's my guess right now. That's not Cassandra. Because he looks at Cassandra and she's just like, I'm evil. And then it cuts to him and he's like, oh my gosh. And then it cuts to credits. So I'm guessing that's what happened. Cassandra is either dead or trapped or gone, and we'll have to go rescue her. And whatever came out of that stupid door in the previous episode wasn't Cassandra. So, cool. That's cool. Had to get that last minute foreshadowing in. I was actually thinking about that, Ross. Because if... Yes, oh god, it could be Mirror Cassandra. If they did a thing where he got that warning the first time. Let's see, what was the first episode the monkey showed up in? Oh, there it is. Episode 6, Vigor the Visionary. Good episode, actually. So... I think that would have worked a little bit better, especially since Eugene wouldn't have really been into it, right? He was already a skeptic back then. But he probably would have held on to it. And you know the episode would have, like, the episodes since then could have brought it up periodically. And he probably would have shared that with Rapunzel. I don't know, I do think that would have worked better. But either way, we have to rate this episode. how does Domenitus know about the betrayal? That's actually a good question. I can't give it red. I'm sorry. I just can't. Ignoring the fact that, you know, the monkey and the Romani. Hmm. I mean, the quality is certainly there, and they do finally pay off a lot of story beats. I was right, by the way, plot episode. And Timothy Dalton does kind of nail it as Demonitus. And yeah, very little bad. There were a couple of things of bad. I already mentioned both of them. I think an orange. I'm thinking orange. Which, by the way, we have now officially surpassed season 1. We've got one last episode to cover. So, any predictions? Well, I already mentioned one. So they keep bringing up this Xantiri thing, right? So based on that, I'm thinking that Cassandra here is Xantiri, or if they wanted to go with the big shocking reveal, which they might want to, because they like to have those big things hit at the end of the season, and nowhere else, it could be Mother Gothel herself. It could be that, because we know they brought back the actress, right? And that's important when it comes to speculating, because sometimes the actress isn't even available, so you can't bring back a character, because you can't get the person playing the character. But we already got her back in a previous episode. Now, granted, that was a vision thing, but I'm wondering if this Cassandra is actually Mother Gothel, somehow. That when she went into that one random room in the thing, she found the third and final thing. I mean, even the way in which the whole house disintegrated was into dust, more or less the exact same way that Mother Gothel herself died. So it's either Mother Gothel or mere Cassandra or Xantiri or something like that. It was replaced Cassandra, and she's going to betray her at the last second. And they're going to have this big epic battle to defeat what's-her-face, whoever it actually ends up being. That would explain her guard dad. No. No, I don't mean like she was always young Mother Gothel. I mean, when she went into the house the previous episode, she was replaced by Mother Gothel, right? In other words, Cassandra's still out there somewhere, and like season 3, I would imagine, probably is going to be dealing with rescuing Cassandra and fixing this whole situation. Something along those lines. Either way, that's my predictions at the moment. I don't think she's going to actually succeed in her quest here. Then again, it would be interesting if she did. Season 1 ended in a fairly large status quo change. The caravan format leaving, going out into the greater world. That was cool. So Season 3 could be dealing with whatever this new power is, right? Whatever new thing is they're going with. I don't know. Food for thought. Do I think Eugene will tell Rapunzel about the note? Yeah. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. I mean, come on. He's had... How many episodes just in this season have been about telling the truth, right? But yeah, exactly. Season 2 will end with Xantiri being unleashed, and that's going to be our major obstacle for Season 3. Rescue Cass and defeat Xantiri. Either way, that's my predictions at the moment. I guess that's it. I'm going to go and jump right into it. No lunch break today. Let's finish Season 2.